In this episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, I interviewed one of my favorite clients. And the reason she's one of my favorite clients is that she's gotten the mix right. And what do I mean by getting the mix right? A lot of people say, I want to start a mission. I want to do this important thing, and I have to figure out how to make money on the side. And other people are like, I need to start a business to make money. And then on the side, I want to do something to help humanity. Now, here's somebody who's gone really strong on both healing and helping people's bodies and their lives improve and making, and here comes a technical term, a ton of money while she's at it. So this is the story of how she's helping people and how she's capitalizing on the content she creates to attract the right kind of people who are willing to pay her a large sum of money in order to help them drastically improve their lives in so many ways.
The Content Capitalist Podcast.
I owned a functional medicine clinic here in Portland, Oregon, one of the largest at the time here. And we were dealing with a lot of people with hormone problems, gut problems, and autoimmune issues. It was a big practice, and there were a lot of compensation model changes in how doctors are not being compensated, and people had to pay more and more out of pocket for these other services that can be life-saving. And for the audience who doesn't understand what functional medicine is, I'm an MD, family medicine physician, who's trained in one of the best medical schools in the country. I got sick, and through my own pain and suffering and my own dime and time, I learned all the other options that my regular conventional top medical school training didn't teach me. So there were tons of other data-driven tools that are natural, that uses scientific data to actually specifically pinpoint what's causing some of these illnesses and diseases, how to stop the root causes. In my own illness, in teaching my own and working patients with that, I developed a protocol on how to actually really turn around impossible to treat autoimmune diseases. Now, that is something that if you're localized to one area of the country, nobody might know about you. You may have something really great, but if nobody knows about you, that's not very effective. And since I was and am one of the only physicians that have really put conventional care for autoimmune disease and all the alternative medicine that's scientific data driven together into one package, how do I get this message out? How do I let people know? And how do I actually show people and demonstrate to people the value, the innovativeness? I'm 26 years in practice. It wasn't until probably year 18 that I started to think outside the box. And that was financial necessity, meaning that the compensation models for my clinic was, from an insurance model standpoint, was dying. So that can force a change. And what was an obstacle for me was, who am I? Who am I to be able to be online, be an authority figure, even though I had something really unique to share and something nobody else has done? There is that whole imposter syndrome thing that we've talked about a lot, which was like, who am I to be an authority on the TV or on social media or on video about this? Do I have something of value to bring? I had to do some soul searching. And I think one of the biggest things I learned was actually from Tony Robbins about imposter syndrome. He said, we are actually the greatest teacher in our area of greatest suffering. And that's really important. And I've taught so many people that you are the expert. You are the teacher in your area of greatest suffering. That automatically makes you an authority. And if you have solutions on top of that, then authority to boot. And I realized in clinic already, people were coming to me and people were traveling from all over the country to fly in to see me. So why can't I get in front of a camera and take that to a wider audience? The next step was really, am I going to be any good on camera?
As you probably guessed by now, Maggie doesn't come from a background of production, like acting and performing in front of the camera, things like that. She has a degree in medicine. She's an MD, and that doesn't really involve learning how to use the camera and perform in social media and all that. So here is something that I tell all my clients, and the thing that I want you to take away from the next part. It's not quality or quantity, because that's the question everybody asks. Should I make a whole bunch of videos or should I make a masterpiece? It's quantity first that leads to quality. The quality comes from quantity of work, and she had to do a whole lot of mistakes. She had to do a whole lot of not getting it right before she did get it right. And then this next part, she's going to unpack that story of how that content really started taking off and what she did to get there. Now, you brought up a term, bro marketing, and I want to hear what that's about.
I was taught, when I learned first how to develop an online program and how to develop a social media presence, all the coaching in the world, business coaches, was be the authority. That's a big thing. How do you be an authority? You want to be the authority, beat imposter syndrome, everything is drilled into you. And being the authority most of the time or all the time means that you broadcast how great you are, how much value you have. And it's just I call it broadcast marketing too, where you're just going through, and it's like, to me, like a broken record. I'm so great. I'm so wonderful. I can do this. I know this. I know that. I did that the first year. And what I found was it felt like a broken record. And number two was it didn't feel authentic to me. I don't think my true authority comes from telling people I am the authority. I think that my true authority is based on the level that I'm able to connect with another individual through video for them to say, I feel connected to this individual, and then what she says makes sense. Right? But it starts with connectedness. I had to pivot and I had to say, I'm not going to just broadcast and be the authority. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to connect. And I'm going to create something in my head called connection-based marketing. That starts with authenticity here first. So which is, I'm going to be a real person. Meaning, do I have to sound and look like a doctor online? Or do I want to look like and act like a doctor who's actually Maggie Yu? Not Dr. Maggie Yu, but Maggie Yu. Who is Maggie Yu? And so I'm a fan of the cursey words. So I sometimes cuss. I'll have in the middle of my video call, my cat will show up, as this has already happened. And on my videos now, my audience will know that inevitably about 30 to 50% of the time, in the middle of my life, a cat will jump up, a dog will be behind me, somebody will be nuzzling up to me, cuddling up to me. They've become a fixture in my videos because that's who I am. I am a consummate animal lover. And I love being connected and loving with my animals. That's just part of who I am. I also started to tell stories, real stories, not the ones that make me look good, but maybe the ones that make me look bad. Maybe the ones that hurt a lot. Maybe the ones that really made me grow. And I found that even though it was difficult to tell those kinds of stories, when I do that, the emotion that comes out and the human experience I'm sharing is so real that people instantly connect with it. I've told many stories about my difficulty dealing with my mom's untimely death and feeling responsible and all the guilty, all these feelings. It may not shock you, Ken, but every single week, somebody somewhere tells me that one of those stories really impacted them and identified with them. As a result, they said, I can identify with Maggie as a person. Then I'm going to listen to her and I'm going to trust her and I'm going to believe her. The authority came from true realness of being who I am and real connectedness with whoever's in my audience as a result of that, not worrying about being the authority or how I looked.
There's a question I can predict that when most people talk to me and they're trying to figure out whether to work with me, they have this question in their mind. And the question is this: at what point should I hire a professional or a professional team to handle my content, or should I do it alone? And that's a really good question because, to be honest, there's a lot of people who want to work with me and I have to turn them away simply because I don't think they're at the right stage yet. So we asked this question to Maggie, who's been doing it by herself, creating her own content, and she's also had experience working with us, and she's had an internal team, external team, she's done the whole thing. So I asked her point blank, at what point does it make sense for a business to hire a professional team of content creators like mine? And the way she answered it was very specific to a number. If you're making X amount per month, then you need to hire a professional team.
A lot of people, when they first start out, they're going to be editing it themselves or just going live and finishing it there. At what point do you think people should actually hire someone to do that for them?
Really, the sooner the better. Here's the thing. I talk about this with autoimmunity as well. I say that the earlier you intervene in something, the smaller the distance between shitty and good, right? But the later you go, the bigger the distance between shitty and good, and the more cost it is to try to fix a damaged reputation or quality. Let's just start it early and not wait till 2, 3, 4 years later when there's a big gap between your years of shitty content and then really good content. That's a much bigger gap to go. And I think it's hard for people who may not be making any money to be able to do that. But I think at a certain point, let's say you reach a profit level of even $10,000, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but at the same time, when you're talking about outsourcing it, you're gonna need those kind of numbers to be able to pay for some of these. But I feel like at a certain point, when you realize that you're getting a regular stream of income, right? And you realize that investing in somebody to actually edit and cut these for you is going to raise your revenue huge in a very short period of time. So it's going to pay for itself. I say within 2-3 months, it's going to pay for itself. And I love the feedback that we get. We're constantly talking. And your team will tell me like, we need more of this, we need less of this, and vice versa. I have been able to pivot so fast in the last couple of years we've worked together. And I have worked with other people. I have edited these videos myself. I've done every single step of this. And I'm going to tell people, don't waste your time. The sooner you can stop wasting your time and have somebody professionally do it, the wiser of a financial investment that is, because your ROI is going to be huge, your learning curve is going to be huge, and you're going to be creating constantly quality content you could use for life. I would never reuse half the content I created 4 years ago, 5 years ago, never. But the content that I've been creating the last 2 to 3 years since working with Ken's team, I will be using for the rest of my life and the rest of the life of this program. So what's the ROI on that?
Absolutely. And that's a question I get a lot is, what's the ROI? It's social media, and it builds over time, and it's a compounding
What's the price of a
effect.
reputation?
Yeah. It's just...
What's the price of a reputation?
I think one way to think about it is, if you have ever seen a connection, like if you know that when you put an ad out on social media, you get business. When you put out a video, like if you've primed that pump and there's a bit of water coming through, that's when you want to attach an engine to it and make it just keep going 24/7.
Exactly.
If the pump is still dry, maybe it's a bit early, and you got to figure that out, because then you might be pumping a dry well that doesn't have anything in it. And then you might flip your business model, might get frustrated investing money in buying an engine.
I think the moment that somebody has 5,000 plus per month in recurring revenue or steady revenue, you really ought to start thinking about putting a fire hose on that thing.
There you go.
Thanks for watching all the way to the very end. And the fact that you're here tells me that this was important to you and you got some value out of it. So if you want to see the rest of this, the 1 hour version, there's a YouTube link. It's right here. And if you want to listen to it, then click down below. All the podcast links are there. But most importantly, smash like and share this with somebody else who might appreciate it. I'll see you next time.